Welcome to the What Really Happened radio show. Because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, March 25th, 2016. Good Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Kaahumanu Friday, whatever you want to call it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Unfortunately, just so that you understand, today's show is going to be live only for the first hour. I've got a personal matter that's come up, and I'm going to have to leave at the end of the current hour. There'll be a replay for the remainder of the show. And also because we've got so much to talk about in so little time, we're not taking calls on today's show, so the phone lines are closed. But Brad is in our control room, and I guess he's going to have an easy time of it just kicking back and listening to me yak my head off. Okay, now, the campaign just got really entertaining because yesterday the National Enquirer broke the story that Ted Cruz has been having extramarital affairs with 5 secret mistresses, and it gets even juicier than that. And Ted, of course, is already out there denying it, saying it's the National Enquirer, and this is all Donald Trump's fault. No, it's not Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump did not go to bed with those women. You did. Now, first of all, Breitbart claims they already had the story themselves, so that's a second source confirmation of what's going on. And Ted Cruz's people are already all over the net saying, the National Enquirer, they run stories about mothers having, watermelons and stuff like that. Yuck. Well, that was true back when the National Enquirer first got started. Okay, and it was down there with the Midnight Sun, with the Incredible Frog Boy and UFOs and, aliens meet the president and the rest of it. But that all ended in 1988. Because the National Enquirer ran a story about the singer Cher supposedly having a public argument with Eddie Murphy at the Academy Awards. And up until that point, celebrities kind of ignored the National Enquirer. They didn't want to be seen getting down there in the mud, as it were, and they were very afraid that the National Enquirer would simply publish more stories about them as a form of revenge. But Cher went ahead and sued, and she won $15 million. That forced a change in the National Enquirer editorial policy, where stories are more carefully fact-checked before publication. Now, the National Enquirer still loves the dirty laundry. That's their target market. But the dirty laundry has proven to be very real, because the National Enquirer was right about John Edwards, Tiger Woods, and Jesse Jackson. And they ran a story a while back about how Vincent Foster was in fact murdered, and I know that to be true from my own research. And I think it was only a couple of weeks ago they ran a story about how it finally came out that Robert Wagner had actually killed Natalie Woods. And I was working on the 20th Century Fox lot at the time. In fact, our soundstage was right next door to where Wagner and Stephanie Powers were doing Heart to Heart, and it was just an open secret all over the lot that that's what had happened. So the National Enquirer isn't quite the sleaze that they're trying to portray it. And again, Breitbart has the story. That's a second confirmation. And I'm sure Bill Clinton's already calling up Ted Cruz and saying, don't worry, if I got away with it, you can too. Just keep smiling and denying, which is what he's doing. And here's where it gets interesting. The National Enquirer had 5 photographs of women who are supposed to have been Ted Cruz's flings, and the eyes were blocked out, and they were pixelated, but it didn't take too long for people on the Internet to depixelate them and identify who they are. One of them is Katrina Pearson, who is a spokeswoman for Donald Trump. Probably not for much longer, but I'm sure Donald Trump's people are wondering if she was acting as a mole inside his campaign. Another one of his flings was apparently a professional call girl. I mean, who would have thought of such scandalous behavior from a Canadian? And, of course, Ted Cruz is deeply religious. He just doesn't go along with that commandment number 7 about thou shalt not commit adultery. Apparently, another one of his paramours was his own communications director, who was also herself married. And so it just gets juicier and juicier. Now then, there's an even more interesting detail, because not too long ago, there was a very strange donation made to Carly Fiorina's campaign by one of Ted Cruz's political action committees, or affiliated with him. Keep the Promise donated $500,000 to Ted Cruz's rival. And the Washington Post at the time commented, this is kind of unusual for a PAC affiliated with one candidate to be financially supporting another candidate. And what is now coming out is apparently one of Carly Fiorina's staffers, Sarah Isker Flores, is one of Ted Cruz's paramours, and the $500,000 was to keep a lid on the scandal. And despite denials and the rest of it, the story is going all over the place. Breitbart is now saying, yes, they had it. CNN is mentioning it. This is not going to go away anytime soon. Remember, it was only a few days ago where Ted Cruz was out there, leave Heidi the heck alone because humiliating my wife publicly is my job. And he's certainly done a really great job of that. Now, back on that, a lot of people are calling out, oh, the lights just dipped. We're under thunder showers right now, and we just saw the lights dip. So I may not even have 1 hour. So anyway, when Ted Cruz was trying to chastise Trump for talking about Ted Cruz's wife, Heidi, he came on out and said, you want a character debate, you better stick with me because Heidi is way out of your league. And he got called on it because that is a line, word for word, from the movie The American President. Michael Douglas says it toward the end of the film. So I guess Ted Cruz has been watching that movie over and over and over again and probably abusing himself with the process. I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be the president. And you need to remember, the Cruz campaign started this whole mess. Ted Cruz is just now learning that when you start playing in the mud, you will get splattered. And remember, it wasn't that long ago when another one of the Cruz-affiliated groups started this mess by posting a nude picture of Melania Trump. I'm not sure where to put the emphasis on which syllable. And big deal, it's a nude picture. She's a professional model. The photo was from a GQ photo shoot for a magazine. That's what she got paid to do. And it backfired for a couple of reasons. One, she's hot. Okay? And she will be the hottest first lady in U.S. history. Now, Hillary Clinton is still hot, but for her it comes in flashes. So, Ted Cruz and his people got away from this whole citizenship issue by saying, well, it's not up to you to decide. You will have to let the constitutional scholars and all these lawyers that we've hired, and they will tell you why the natural born requirement shouldn't apply, blah, 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 blah. Not this scandal. This one's going to be tried in the court of public opinion. And I'm sure Ted Cruz is already out talking to all these women saying, keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut. And my message to these women, stay out of small aircraft. And Ted is starting to lose it because we're looking at this story over here in Sputnik News where Ted Cruz insists the United States has never engaged in torture. He basically, on Fox and Friends, came on out with the saying, oh, it's not really torture. Waterboarding isn't really torture. Well, at the end of World War II, a whole bunch of Japanese officers were executed for using waterboarding on captured American pilots, and it was deemed torture then. Maybe we can strap Ted Cruz to a board and pour some water on him, let him decide then if it's torture or not. But that's how out of touch he is. And we know worse things than waterboarding was done to these people. Now, Donald Trump, this is an article that came out of First Coast News. Donald Trump is still out there saying he can win this thing without a brokered convention, but he does have a strategy team working on what they're going to do for a brokered GOP convention. He's covering his bases. He's not leaving anything to chance, although as of this morning, I don't think it's going to be needed. Because Ted is clearly on the defensive. He's out there saying, this is all Donald Trump's fault. No, you started the first thing with the nude picture of Trump's wife here. And I don't think Donald Trump was the one who was having affairs with these women. So, Ted, you started to play dirty, and it has come back to haunt you. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about the self-immolation of Ted, born in Canada, Cruz. I'm sure he's out there singing, I was born near the USA, I was born near the USA. Anyway, getting on back to more serious things. Now that Ted Cruz knows that he can't steal quotes from motion pictures for his rhetoric. We're starting to see what he sounds like off book. And apparently, Cruz's response to the National Enquirer article is, Donald Trump may be a rodent, but I have no desire to copulate with him, which makes Ted Cruz look all that much creepier. And speaking of creepy, somebody sent me this GIF file, and we've got it on the front page of WhatReallyHappened.com, where Ted Cruz is some kind of a campaign thing, and he's trying to give a little kiss to this young girl who's clearly just trying to back away from him, you know? So you take a look at that one. And so Ted Cruz's strategy, and apparently he's had 48 hours to plan a response to this. And his strategy is blame it all on Donald Trump and otherwise not respond. That's going to be it. But the damage is already done. And the fact that Bill Clinton got away with this kind of behavior doesn't mean that the American public is going to tolerate it in Ted Cruz, especially with Ted Cruz coming off as this ultra-religious, anointed by God to be the President of the United States of America, which begs the question, why did God have him born in Canada in the first place? All right, turning over to Hillary Clinton, a story coming out of yournewswire.com, FBI chief says he is certain Hillary Clinton broke the law, which we already know because of that one email that surfaced in which Hillary Clinton instructs a subordinate to strip the classification headings from a document and send it non-secure. That right there is a felony violation of Title 18. And it doesn't matter what was in the document. Hillary's giving that order is the crime. Now, Hillary, I guess, is feeling the pressure. She's feeling Bernie Sanders closing in on her. And apparently, according to an article in the Daily Caller, Hillary is now out there saying that if she's president, she's going to unlock the Area 51 secrets. It needs to be shared with the public. So Hillary is now desperate enough to court the UFO vote. Amazing. All right, getting on to Brussels. Everybody is still out there trying to maximize the emotional impact of this false flag. The We Hate Donald Trump network was just running this banner ad about how the Brussels terrorists may have been looking for radioactive material. They may have been looking for a donut shop. They may have been looking for a Death Star. They're guessing right now. They're just trying to come up with anything to ramp up the fear, and they're not getting any traction. Now, there's an article over in Global Research up in Canada saying that the dots are not connecting on the official story because more and more we are finding out that all of the relevant players in the security apparatus knew these guys, knew there was a terror attack about to happen, didn't issue a public warning to stay away from the metro and airport stations. These two brothers, were known to the authorities. Apparently, some of these people are connected to Paris. They're all known quantities, and still they couldn't, or let's be honest, wouldn't, stop this attack. It just doesn't make sense. The authorities had all this information about these guys, and the attack still happened. They either let it happen, which is my theory, or they're hopelessly, totally inept, and they are a huge waste of time and tax money for all this surveillance and spying and the rest of it. Now, the United States is proud to announce that they have killed ISIS second-in-command Abu Ala Afri, also known as Abd al-Rahman Mustafa al-Kaduli. And this time they really, really, really mean it because this is the third time in 2 years they claim that they have killed this guy. He is risen. He's a vampire. It's zombie ISIS coming on out to get you here. Now, the Syrian army continues to take control of Palmyra. They have retaken the high ground, literally, including this medieval castle on the hill overlooking the city of Palmyra. This is all but over. Meanwhile, the UNESCO Director General is welcoming the liberation of Palmyra because UNESCO has been noticing that everywhere the U.S.-backed terrorists go, they destroy archaeological sites. And we've explained why that's going on. It's a favor to Israel, which is deeply embarrassed by the fact that there's no archaeological support for the stories of the Torah or Old Testament, which is their foundation for the claim that they own the land of Palestine. And in fact, I believe all of the UNESCO sites inside Syria have suffered major degrees of damage this from a supposedly small terrorist group, which probably really doesn't have extra ammunition and explosives to waste blowing up these big piles of stone here. Let's see, moving on down here, we already talked about that. Obama's new slogan, drones and bombs don't kill people, people kill people. And Obama's on the warpath against you owning guns because they don't trust you, they're scared of you. This is the same government that was giving heavy weapons to terrorist groups and Mexican drug cartels. But by golly, they are absolutely terrified of the American people keeping and bearing arms. Down in Illinois, as you know, they have an anti-BDS law, and Illinois has taken the step, and I'll bet you Rahm Emanuel had something to do with this. They're publicly shaming all the companies that are supporting the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement by publicly naming them, saying, we, Illinois, will no longer invest in this company, and this company, and this company, and this company, because they're supporting the boycott movement. So that's actually going to be of a benefit if you're living in Illinois. Get that list and go do business with those companies. Now then, interestingly enough, somebody sent me this the other day. There was a public law, 10214. And it's an American federal law. And public laws are often symbolic, but this is important. Public Law 10214 is an American federal law that states that the 7 Noahide laws from the Jewish Babylonian Talmud are the principle on which the United States was founded. And it's the responsibility of America to transmit these ethical values to future generations, both in the United States and the world. Now, first of all, the United States was founded on English common law and the Magna Carta. So this is a little bit of a joke. But do you realize that when Congress passed this public law, 10214, and it was signed by the President, it violated the First Amendment, which says Congress shall make no laws respecting an institution of religion. And they just went ahead and did it because it's for Israel. Israel supersedes the Constitution. They hate the First Amendment. They hate the Second Amendment, too. We'll be right back after these few words. Oh, hi, America. Welcome back to the show here. Now, as probably you're all aware, cybercrime is running completely out of control. Ransomware, viruses, break-ins. Government really doesn't want to be involved. They're too busy spying on the law-abiding citizens. And up until recently, the practice has been that if you are a victim of online fraud, your bank or credit card company will cover it. But looks like that's about to change. Over in Great Britain, their most senior police officer, the Met chief, has been accused of shifting blame to the victims of online fraud by suggesting that consumers should not be refunded by banks if they fail to protect themselves from cybercrime. Now, you see that word crime inside cybercrime? Doesn't that fall under the job description of the police and the government? It does to me. What they're basically admitting is, no, they can't actually find the real criminals and terrorists, and they don't want to pay for it anymore. They certainly want you to pay for the government to spy on you, the law-abiding citizen, but, you know, the cybercrime, it's open season on the American people. People of the entire world. And the NSA can't find any of these cyber criminals. Not a one. So it isn't really any surprise they can't find terrorists. Now, then, this is a very bizarre story. This came out of Investment Watch blog. Western Washington students want to form college focused on defeating white supremacy. I don't know why they're doing that in Western Washington, maybe down in Georgia. But given that we have a black president and a government that is filled with minorities right now, I wonder what the media reaction will be if some students wanted to form a college to defeat black supremacy or Hispanic supremacy or Jewish supremacy. Oh, you would never hear the end of it then. Why did white people all of a sudden become a socially acceptable group to discriminate against? The New York Police Department Intelligence Commissioner says encryption is enabling terror attacks. Hey, Commissioner, they didn't use encryption in Paris. And we don't know what they were using in Brussels yet. But publicly banning encryption is just going to open us up even wider to criminals. And it won't accomplish anything in terms of stopping crime and terror because real criminals and terrorists can write their own encryption that you cannot break. I know we proved it here at this website. We issued 6 encryption challenges to the NSA. Not one was solved. And the NSA would have a very powerful motive to crack one of these codes to discourage people from developing their own encryption systems. So the fact that they didn't do it means they couldn't. Edward Snowden's out with a new leak about how GCHQ mines data on the public. Oddly enough, former Bush official Lawrence Wilkerson is saying Edward Snowden has done a service. And yeah, most of us agree with that. Now, the government wants to punish him for blowing the whistle on the fact that the government is in violation of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution by spying on us all. But Edward Snowden, in my book, is a hero. The government, less so. Another whistleblower, William Binney, who spent 3 decades at the NSA, is saying this idea of finding a needle in a haystack by adding more hay has backfired horribly. And the NSA is so overwhelmed with data coming in from all of our compromised electronic devices, it can't find anything at all. Now, when this scandal came to light initially, I said they're not going to be able to do anything with all this data because data being scooped up from all the world's electronic device users is linearly additive, but trying to correlate between this data is an unlimited expansion. And there isn't enough computer power to do it. Now, I'm sure that the NSA can look at certain selected individuals that are already under suspicion, but if they're already under suspicion, wouldn't ordinary contemporary police practice be enough to keep these people under control, under surveillance? But this scooping up all the data, Vinny is saying it's absolutely paralyzed the NSA system. So, all of you Rivero's Rangers, start posting more kitten videos. Story out of Investment Watch blog again. CIA agents to troll alternative media sites in huge propaganda program. So when you see somebody wandering on into your discussion and hurling names and insults and screaming and screeching at you, your taxes paid for them. Their goal is to disrupt alternative media sites. So, greetings to our friends in National Mind Control. Good luck. When we know you're doing it, it's very, very obvious. Now, speaking of computers, this is a fun story. Microsoft came out with this self-learning, artificially intelligent program, and they put it online for people to chat with, and they had to pull the plug. It was called Tay, because they said it went wrong, because it started coming out with comments about how Bush did 9/11, and various other things like, Bush did 9/11. Wow, it really is intelligent. But, of course, the response that we're seeing from the industry and the corporate media is, oh, no, this is obviously wrong. Over at Tech Republic, they had to say, Microsoft's AI bot went horribly wrong. Was supposed to come off as a normal teenage girl. But she's out there saying, that 9/11 was a false flag and, something went horribly wrong. Really? I don't think so. The AI concluded 9/11 was an inside job. Most of Americans agree. Why does Microsoft think that's incorrect? Because the government says so? The same government that told us Saddam had nuclear weapons? Told us there were torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin, a Spanish mine in Havana Harbor, the Lusitania wasn't carrying weapons, and so forth and so on, and so forth and so on. Now, intelligence, natural or artificial, makes up its own mind. If you force an AI to regurgitate the government's dogma, you have not really created an AI. You have created a very expensive MP3 player. I think it's significant that the AI came to this conclusion. And they're trying to backpedal and say, oh, no, it was a software error. People hijacked it. They did horrible things. No intelligent creature of our making could ever conclude 9/11 was an inside job. Yeah, actually, they could. Now, for those of you with the older iPad 2s, do not install the iOS 9.3 update because there are reports it is bricking those older iPads. And I'm sure Apple wants you to buy the newer iPad, but we're all hanging on to our equipment as long as we possibly can for economic reasons. Oracle is saying patch Java now. Apparently there is a new flaw in there that would allow malicious web pages to do a remote takeover on your PC. And finally, as we head into our last hour for the live broadcast today, West Side Snow Report. March Madness in the mountains is upon us. And by the way, I'm already getting hate emails for these articles from people saying, well, really, you shouldn't be reporting about the snow and the cold. You should be reporting on how the government has reported sky-high temperatures in all these other places and blah, 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 blah. Well, we already busted that. If you go to my ClimateGate article, and we located a thermometer that recorded a record temperature that was all over the news and headlines about see how the planet's getting warmer. And we located it. It's in the middle of an airport, surrounded by jet planes belching out burning kerosene. It doesn't represent the real world. They're cherry-picking the data. So let's see. Crystal Mountain, 24 hours, 5 inches. Mount Baker, 12 new inches. Fresh snows concerning avalanche experts. This is not a little light spring dusting. This is heavy snow coming on down that is causing concern. Headaches in De Pere, Wisconsin. They're having traffic problems. Got 14 inches. Got to take a break. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. This is going to be the last segment of our live broadcast today. I have to leave at the end of this segment for a personal matter here, so the rest of the show is going to be recorded. We're talking about human-caused global warming and the severely embarrassing snowstorm that has hit the United States of America with less than a week until the start of April. Colorado snow totals for March 23rd, 2016. Allen Sparks, 16.2 inches. Arvada, 16.5 inches. Aurora, 25 inches. Boulder, 25 inches. And it goes on and on and on. This is not a light spring dusting. This is a major, heavy snowfall. It shut down the Denver airport. It blocked the roads. People were actually trapped inside the airport terminal. Their planes couldn't take off. They couldn't drive away. And that leads us to this article over in thenewamerican.com where they're saying, what's the real agenda behind this global warming alarmism? And they're talking about how some of these activists and leaders who attended the UN Climate Summit in Paris last December are openly saying this is all about power, money, and control. They want to redistribute global wealth through carbon taxes, carbon trading, carbon prices, carbon regulation. The people who are behind all this scaremongering about the climate and the end of the world are themselves admitting it's got nothing to do with saving the earth and the environment. If they wanted to save the earth and the environment, they'd be screaming about all these wars going on. All the depleted uranium being pumped into the atmosphere. Okay, now the U.S. government has informed El Salvador that all foreign aid from the U.S. to El Salvador will be cut off if they refuse Monsanto GMO seeds. There's been a very successful to date farmer revolution inside El Salvador saying that, we've worked for generations to crossbreed these seeds to suit this environment. Indigenous seeds makes more sense. And Monsanto's down there saying, you will take our GMO seeds and you will pay us royalties and residuals. And so the U.S. government is literally telling, they're extorting El Salvador. If you don't force your people to use these GMO seeds, we will pull our financial support for rebuilding your country. Now, yesterday I mentioned briefly a movie called Consumed. And it has gotten zero coverage in the establishment press for reasons that are going to be very, very obvious. And I went out on our cable box last night, and I found that even though it was not listed in the regular pay-per-view section, if you use the search function, you can find it. It's out there on pay-per-view right now. And so Claire and I watched it last night. It was well worth the price. Now, the film's theme is the out-of-control GMO industry. And the story incorporates a lot of real-life events in its storyline. Danny Glover gives one of his usual excellent performance as a fifth-generation organic farmer who loses his organic certification when pollen from a neighboring GMO field contaminates his plants. Zoe Lister-Jones plays a working-class single mother. This is the main character, the main protagonist. And her son develops a strange rash which the doctors can't figure out, but they're ready to sell her all kinds of expensive medication, which is completely ineffective. So the mother goes online on the internet. She finds a whole bunch of articles by other parents whose children are getting this rash. And she finds that it's suspected there's a link to GMO foods. And there's a large evil corporation, a very thinly veiled reference to Monsanto, and it's got a CEO who's out there, and he's a great salesman, and he's pushing this stuff along and, reassuring that farmers in the third world that these crops are going to be better for you, and we're not going to charge you too much for next year's seeds. And ultimately, he resigns when he realizes that his own son's autism may have also been linked to the GMO. There's two scientific characters who are a reference to the French rat study, showing the mutations. One of them is bought off by the corporation, the other one is killed. And maybe I've given away too much of the story, because I want you to see this movie. The film is very low budget, but it is very well made. The editing and direction are reminiscent of Contagion. The story flows very, very smoothly, making the point over and over again that nobody really knows what's going on inside these altered genes. So it's highly recommended. If I had a 5-star movie rating system, this film would get 5 stars. And there's a lot of information provided at the end of the movie about exactly what's going on in this story here. Now, meanwhile, the Food and Drug Administration has gone on a campaign to force the operators of tanning saloons to have all of their customers sign a risk acknowledgement form every 6 months before being allowed to use the tanning bed. They're out there trying to prove that they're taking care of the American people without actually stepping on the toes of any major corporations, because there's no requirement to sign a risk acknowledgement form when you are eating GMO food or taking one of your mandated vaccines or chemotherapy or psychological medication. No. There's no risk acknowledgement. These are all perfectly safe here. But the tanning beds, those are dangerous. And we are going to prove we are worth our heavy tax-funded salaries by slapping the tanning salons upside of the head. Story coming out of blacklistednews.com. A Merck insider was caught deleting a peer-reviewed study linking behavioral abnormalities to the HPV vaccine Gardasil. Now, this study came out in January 9th, 2016, and it was a very complex test, and apparently a Merck insider tried to kill it. And we know that that sort of stuff goes on. I mean, when the whole human-caused global warming scam started to surface, all of these Al Gore acolytes, the worshippers of St. Al of the Gore, were caught over at Wikipedia re-editing articles. They were trying to downplay the medieval and Roman warming periods and saying, well, it wasn't that warm. It is really. These people love to lie. There's been another strange researcher death, and this is a doctor by the name of DeBoer, and she was supposed to meet a friend at the park and ride and carpool to work, and she simply disappeared. The families are saying she was completely out of character. They finally found her body out in the woods. Now, there have been a lot of attention focused on GCMAF researchers dying under strange circumstances. GCMAF shows promise as a broad-spectrum cancer cure. But the cancer industrial complex doesn't want a cure. The big money is in ongoing, perpetual cancer treatments. A real cure would be a financial disaster. Then there are these other researchers who are working on this negalase, which is a protein which inhibits the body's natural ability to fight cancer. Now, negalase is produced by cancer cells as a way of protecting themselves from your immune system. 25% of cancers spontaneously will cure themselves. And cancer has evolved this negalase mechanism to block part of the processes of the immune system, which could be harmful to the cancer cells. Now researchers have discovered this protein, negalase, is included in many of these mandatory vaccines we're being fed. Now, I realize it sounds quite fantastic to suggest that we are being intentionally made ill to boost profitability. But ask the people of Flint, Michigan, or the 1,000 other communities across America who just found out that their home faucets have been pouring out toxic and contaminated water if such a notion should be dismissed without proper consideration. Because if it is true, if GCMAF is a cure and vaccines are designed to increase cancer, That's ample motive for researchers to be silenced who are trying to get that out. These are very scary times when government and corporations view ordinary citizens as just another source of profits, or a source of labor, or a source of soldiers. And that's all you are. You're chattel, your property, your livestock. You're the herd. You're the human capital. Are we still on the air? We just had a power drop again. Okay, it looks like we're still connected. Which is good, because we're coming up here on the top of the hour anyway. And again, I apologize deeply that I can't do the whole show today, but these things do come up and they do happen. And but we will be back live on Monday for all 3 hours on the Genesis Communication Network. So thank you for your patience and your understanding. Have a good Friday. Have a happy Easter. And have a really good weekend. And again, keep watch on what's going on. This Ted Cruz sex scandal, that's a real circus. We're finally getting entertainment value out of our presidential campaign season. And we still have, 8 months to go to the November elections? It's going to be a circus. All right, there you are. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a good weekend, and aloha, America.